Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first professional development meeting today for the River City School District. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to kick off the 2023-2024 school year with you. For those who do not know me, my name is Sarah Reedy, and I am your new literacy coach this year for the River City School District. I'm so excited to be here. I've enjoyed getting to know some of you, walking through the hall, seeing you prepare your classrooms for your students, and just start off this year amazing. So I'd like to thank you for welcoming me with open arms, and I'm hoping today that we're going to not only focus on our students and our literacy growth, but also get to know each other as colleagues and to know that I am going to be on this journey with you this year and helping you have your students succeed in and out of the classroom. So thank you for having me. To start off our meetings, I always like to start off with some norms. So these are, if you notice, I have our giant chart up here, our poster chart, and I've written down some norms that I really have come to love when I attend meetings. And if you notice, you'll notice each meeting that we have, might be some new norms that are added up here because I always find new norms talking to teachers and what pertains to you. And it's always interesting because depending on the grade level or the topic that we are focusing on today, the norms kind of change and correlate with that. So I want to go over some of the norms here for you. And like I said, I have it on a giant poster board to refer to throughout our professional development today. But the first one is, I know that your time is precious. I am taking you out of the classroom today, away from your students. So my goal is to always start the event on time. If you notice, our meeting started today at 8 o'clock, and I started it right at 8 o'clock. Like I said, your time is precious. I appreciate you for coming today. So I want to take that time and show you that I appreciate that. I also want to make sure our meeting ends on time. I know you have busy lives both in and outside of the classroom. I was once a classroom teacher, so I want to make sure you are out on time. If I can get you out a little bit earlier, then I will do that as well. So that is a huge sticking point for me. Also, when others are speaking, if you could please refrain from interrupting them. I know it's hard. Sometimes you may hear me say something and then an idea pops in your head or a question, or you hear a colleague talking and the same thing happens. So if you notice on your table, I have some bright colored sticky notes and some colorful pens and markers. I know teachers like to write with different tools. So if you come up with a question or you want to talk about that topic that your colleague is mentioning, feel free to write that on the sticky note. And if you notice on the left side of our wall over here, I have another giant poster board and it's called the parking lot. So feel free to get up with your sticky note and you can place your sticky note on that parking lot. And that's going to tell me that there is a question, there could be a concern, there could be a statement that you want to share. So during breaks, I will go over and check that parking lot. If you are not comfortable with me sharing your question out loud, please write that on your sticky note and I will go ahead and I can come to you and talk one-on-one. I also know that some questions that people ask, usually there's more than one person that's thinking that question. So it's always a great time to share that question out. So if you are comfortable with that, I will go and refer to the parking lot, like I said, throughout our lesson and share that question out loud because I guarantee your question has been thought of by other colleagues as too. So you're helping others. Also, maintaining confidentiality of our differences during our meeting. We are all professionals, we are all colleagues, and we are all here to improve our instruction and to help our students, like I always say, both in and outside of the classroom. We may not agree on everything. I may tell you something and you're like, oh, Sarah, I've tried that. I'm having trouble in my classroom. This is how I do it. Or how do you expect me to do that in the classroom with 20-some students? So that's great. I love those different ideas. It allows us both to think and work together. But if we can keep those differences inside this meeting, that would be wonderful and respect each other's opinions. And like it goes into the next one, respect all ideas and listen carefully. As I said, we are all professionals, we are all colleagues, but we all think a little bit differently. And it's okay. Sometimes you may be thinking a certain way and I may not even have thought that way, but when you talk to me about it, I'm like, oh, you are right. So it's always a good idea just to listen carefully. And even if you don't agree to it, just listen and be respectful. And also, like I said, I have this poster up here for our norms. So I left some blank spaces if you have any suggestions for our norms. So what I'm going to do is I have this giant timer that you're going to see up here throughout the day. I'm going to set it for 3 minutes. And when I say go, you can turn and talk to your neighbors next to you. If you have any ideas that we should add to our norms, go ahead and talk about those together. If you do not have any norms to add, I know you don't get a lot of time to talk to your colleagues outside of the classroom, so feel free to use this 3 minutes just to talk to each other, say hello. There are refreshments over there, light refreshments. There's orange juice, coffee, water. I have some light snacks as well, so feel free throughout the professional development meeting this morning. If you need to stretch your legs, go get a refreshment, go get a coffee. If you need to use the restroom, if your phone rings, I know we have families and our students, feel free to take the phone call and go out in the hallway. That is completely fine with me. So I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do any of those things, or if you just want to sit there and kind of enjoy the piece this morning, you are welcome to do that too. So you may begin. All right, you heard that buzzer, that timer went off. Does anyone like to share any norms that they would like to add to our poster? Wow, see, those were excellent norms. I have never heard of some of those norms as well, or thought of those norms. And so, like I said, I always like to grow with my meetings as well that I lead. So I will take these notes and I will use them appropriately for my next professional development meeting. So your other colleagues from the other schools in the district may see your normed ideas up there as well. So thank you for sharing. I always like to start off meetings with icebreakers, and I know as a teacher, when I would hear the word icebreaker and our principal would start off our meetings like that, we'd just be like, no. But I like to choose my icebreakers icebreakers that are quick and very simple and to the point with simple steps, right? So we are going to start with the icebreaker. It's called one word. Okay, it's just simple steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide you guys into groups of 4. If we need to have a group of 5, that is fine. So you're going to so the people that you're sitting with, you typically tend to know best, but I want you to grow and know your team and building across who you typically maybe were to sit next. So you're going to form newly groups. So I'm going to count you off by numbers and assign you to those groups. Okay. So we're going to go in the room. I'm just going to give you a number. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to start over 1, 2, 3, 4. So make sure you remember your number. So I love this icebreaker one word because I notice that it always sparks spontaneous conversation in every group, no matter the participants, no matter the topic that we are discussing. So this is called one word. So an example of this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a word, and that word is comprehension. Okay, that is what you will notice that our main topic is going to focus on today. It is literacy, but we are going to focus on the comprehension piece, and you'll understand why in a little bit. So what you have to do is you are going to get with your group members in the smaller group, and you have to select one word to describe the word comprehension. And you cannot use the same word as your group mates. It could be a simile, but it cannot be the same word. And what you're going to do is you're going to go around that circle. I'm going to set my handy timer again I'm going to set it for 2 minutes this time. And when I set that timer and say go, you will each have a word that relates to comprehension. What do you think of when you think of the word comprehension? You're going to go around and see how many words as a group you can come up with that relates to comprehension. Okay, simple enough. I know you got to wake up your brain a little bit and think, but this does not have to be about yourself. So this is why I like this icebreaker. Some of us don't like to maybe share more about our personal life. This is just about academics. So go ahead, find your group mates. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and find. Let's have group number 1. I'm going to have you come over to the right side of our room. Group number 2, I'll have you go to the back of our room. If you notice, I have the sticky notes up with numbers 1. And the back of the room has 2. Our left side of the room, that is number 3 group. So if you are the number 3, and then the front of the room close to me, you see the giant number 4. So go ahead and break out my 1s, my 2s, my 3s, and my 4s. I'll give you a minute to get situated, and then I will set the timer. All right, everyone looks ready that they're in the group. So again, you are in your groups of 4. The word is comprehension. You have to think of only one word that describes comprehension, or what does comprehension mean to you. And you're, as a group, you're going to see how many you can come up with. And we're going to see which group has the most. And then if you'd like to share out some of the words that you thought, we will do that as well. So I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes, and you may begin. And that is our timer. I was walking around real quick hearing excellent words, discussions. I was hearing laughter because it is a little bit harder than what you think because it's one word. Now, would any of the groups like to share some of the words that they thought of when they thought of comprehension? Wow, I'm really impressed. Wow, one group had 15 words when they thought of comprehension. That is awesome. So nice job, guys. Thank you. You may go back to your seats. And if you noticed, I jotted down while you were telling me these words for comprehension. I jotted them down on my computer. During the break, I will break up another poster of all the different words that you guys came up with when comprehension. I'm very impressed. I've never had this many words when I've done this one before with the word comprehension. This would also be, though, I would tell them it's a fun time, even to use it like Christmas or different birthday parties. You can have the topic be about anything. It could even be about a person if you're celebrating a birthday. So that's why I like this one word icebreaker. Very simple, gets our brains moving, gets us focusing. So great job. All right, so I sent out the schedule a little bit about what our professional development meeting was about today, but I want to go into more depth about why. What brings us here today? So first of all, I always want to say, coming in here this summer, I want to shout out and share the wonderful things that I have seen your building and your district do in regards to literacy, okay? And you know what? I can tell you all the test scores, and we are going to go over test scores today. I'm going to show you the great things that I see that you're doing, the great things I hear out in the community that you're doing. But some of the best shares and shout outs come from yourselves, your own colleagues, or share what you're doing. Because like I said, I know you guys are busy. It's hard to find time to share with your colleagues all the amazing things you're doing. So if anyone has any shout outs, maybe a colleague that you see that is doing something wonderful in the classroom, an administrator, or something that you're doing wonderful or that you're going to be doing this year that you would like to share, please, now is the time to do so. So are there any shares out there? Awesome. Thank you. I love hearing those shares. Now, are there any aspects of literacy that you think students excel at? So I want you to think about that question. Think about your own students. It could be current students. It could be past students. Think about aspects of literacy that you find that your particular students excel at, or excel as a whole. I know sometimes the students come up in grade levels and you're like, wow, this year these kids truly understand what summarizing is. Or wow, these kids are very fluent readers. So you'll find that in each grade level, you'll pick out some really positive aspects of literacy that these students are excelling at. So is there anything this year, I know it's still new, but this year that you noticed that your students are excelling at in literacy, or in previous years, have you noticed a common denominator of what they excel at really well at? Feel free to share. Does anyone like to share? Awesome. Now, can you tell me about the strategies that you teach the 5 elements of reading? Now, we know the 5 elements of reading. Who can tell me what they are? What's one of them? Yes, good. Fluency. What's another one? Phonemic awareness. Yes. Phonics. Comprehension. Vocabulary. Very good. Yes, you guys know the 5 elements of reading. Excellent job. Oh, we're done for the day with our professional development. That was it. No, I'm just kidding. Is there anything else that, now that we focus on our positives, we know what the main 5 components of reading are. Now let's look at, I know it's a little bit hard to dig into, but we're going to look at things that we can improve on in the area of teaching literacy. And specifically today, as you saw in the notes I sent out, is specifically we're going to be focusing on the comprehension piece. So what can you think of, or anything that you think that you've noticed from previous years or current, areas that we can do to improve our reading comprehension? Awesome. These are all great. I love this dialogue, communicating back and forth, especially I haven't been into the classrooms a lot since this is my first year, and I know it's the beginning of the school year, but this allows me kind of what it's like and what you are seeing and doing in the classroom. So it helps us kind of get on that same page. So thank you for sharing all that. And lastly, what can we do? That is my biggest thing. That is what I want you guys to take away from today as well. Not only myself, but your administration. We are here to help you. So in regards to reading or basically math, any topic, what can we do to help you? And like I said, I am the literacy coach. My focus is on reading, but yes, I will help you with anything that I can try to help you with. But specifically, if we're looking at teaching reading, I want you to think of what are some things that you would like from me this year? What are some things you would like from your administration this year? How can I guide you and how can I support you? And I know that's a big umbrella question to think of right now. Like I said, again, if you want to write that on the sticky note, and I will put up another chart of maybe areas that you are looking for guidance this year, that is something that I will take with me, and I will make sure that I will do my best to meet those expectations and those needs for you this year. Because like I said, even though I'm not directly in the classroom with you, this is a team effort. And if we all work together, I know we are going to see even greater positives happening in the classroom than you already do with your students and seeing them excel. All right, so the big question, we know we're here for literacy, and we talked about we're going to be focusing on the comprehension piece. But why or how did I decide that we're going to focus on our comprehension and literacy today? So as we all know, our students are taking the normed referenced test, and it's the reading assessment, and it's administered 3 times a year. So I received our results. I was analyzing the data. I went over with your admin, and this is where we are and why we're here today to go over that with you. So in that assessment piece, there are different skills that are assessed. We have our word knowledge and skills, our comprehension strategies, construction of meaning of the text, and then analyzing literacy text. And lastly, understanding the author's craft and analyzing argument and evaluating the text. So those are the areas of the reading assessment that our students are given and assessed on 3 times a year. Okay? So the data came in from last year's students, and that's what we're going to review today. So the assessment is based on data from the end of the 2023 school year. So this was our 2022-2023 school year. The Ohio Language Arts Assessment is administered from 3rd through 8th grade students, and it's based on our Ohio Learning Standards. There are 3 sections of the test. We have reading for information and literacy text, and we have the writing piece. Okay, so we're going to be focusing, if you notice, the 5th grade teachers are here today. My goal is to meet with all grades 3 through 8 in all building levels and go over the data. So finding ways and celebrating what we're doing successfully and areas that we could improve on. So let's look at the Ohio 5th grade ELA assessment. So if you're gonna see in the chart here, there is a comparison. You're gonna see it's made between the 5th graders in the River City School District and the 5th graders over the entire state of Ohio. So first we're going to be compared all of the 5th graders from the River City School District compared to all of the 5th graders in the state of Ohio. Then we're going to compare the 5th graders from all 3 of our building levels, the Tucson Elementary, which is here today, woohoo, our Stillwater Elementary, and our Wabash Elementary. So then our data is going to be compared building-wise. Any questions so far? All right, so let's look at our first graph here. This is looking at the Ohio 5th grade ELA assessments. And if you notice, this shows the grade level. So if we look at the bottom, we have our grade levels. There's our lovely 5th grade. And then if you look on the left-hand side, it's the percentage of students. And then our green is students that met the benchmark, the goal that they should have been at when they took the test. If we look at our orange, these are students who are below benchmark. So they are not meeting what Ohio is expecting our students to meet in regard to the ELA Ohio Learning Standards. So we're going to look specifically, if you look at 5th grade here, 41% of our students overall in the district are at benchmark. They are meeting what they are expected to be meeting with the Ohio Learning Standards. If we look at the red, or the orange, we see that 59%, almost 60, is below benchmark. So they, according to Ohio's learning standards, they are not where they need to be. And if we notice by looking at this data, we start over here with 66% are below benchmark. We're dropping down to 59. So we are bringing students up to benchmark. But if we really look at the data and we really want to improve ourselves, we know we could do a better job. And our goal today is to figure out where we can do that job to help raise our students' test scores. Maybe where are our students struggling in regards to this test that we can incorporate different research-based strategies to our students in the classroom. Now, I want you to go ahead and turn and talk to a neighbor in a minute. I'll set my timer, and I just want you to look at the data together. And I know it seems small on my screen here, so if you notice, I have packets for you on your desk. And in this packet, you will see this chart, so it's bigger for you to see, because I know that will come in handy. Those numbers are hard to see. So if you look at the chart with your neighbor, I'm going to let you turn and talk, and I want you to talk about the data, and maybe even though we haven't seen yet the broken down parts of where our students are excelling at and maybe areas of needs of improvement, talk about, with your grade level, talk about where do you think your students are excelling at on the test, and where do you think we need a little bit more focus for our students for this assessment. So I'm going to set my timer. I'll give you 3 minutes, and if I see that we need more time, I will definitely extend that time for you. So go ahead and turn and talk. Wow, I was walking around. Those were some excellent conversations. Would anyone like to share out what you and maybe your partners noticed in the data? Like I said, we have not gotten into the meat of the data. We're just seeing overall numbers about where our students are starting when they're in first grade and where they're at when they come in fifth grade and how they exit. Would anyone like to share some data that they're noticing or data trends? Excellent. I see, this is why I love sharing out, because we all share similar questions. I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing. And then once you share, ask a question, it sparks other questions to form too. So great job. Okay, now I told you we are going to dive in specifically to these ELA assessments, looking specifically at fifth grade. So if you look over here, we're going to first look at, you can see, we're going to start talking about the categories. So the categories, as we mentioned, we know this is English language arts. We have our reading for informational text, reading for literary text, and then we have our writing portion. Okay, so if you look at, this is the Ohio performance level. So this is where our fifth graders are in general in Ohio. And underneath it, we're going to look at our district level, where our fifth graders are compared to the state of Ohio. So if you look at it, the average scale score for the state of Ohio as a fifth grader is 719. So the percent of fifth graders in Ohio that are proficient are 70%. Okay. If you look at the average scale score for our district, it is 727. So yay, kudos to you. It is above the average of comparing the students for the state of Ohio, which is awesome. I like to see that. And if you look at our percent proficient, we have 76 that are proficient. And again, yay, that is above the state of Ohio's fifth grade average. So I will take that. I love to see that we are above where the average fifth graders are in the state of Ohio of how many we have proficient. And again, I know this chart is kind of small for you to see. If you flip over to our chart on page 2, you will see this chart blown up bigger for you, and feel free to look at that if you don't want to look at my screen if it's too hard to see. Now, I have the legend down here. Our red is our below proficient. Our orangish yellow color is our at or near proficient, and our blue, which means they are above proficient. If we look, we're going to look first at the Ohio performance level. If we look at the reading for informational text, you can see 49% of our students in Ohio that are fifth graders are above proficient. And then we have 33 who are at proficient or they're near. And then we have our 18% who are below proficient. Going into our reading for literacy text, we have 46% of our students are above proficient level, 33 are considered at or near proficient, and 21 are considered below proficient. And then the writing portion, which I know everyone always says the writing portion is the hardest for our students. We have 48% of students are above proficient, 26 are at or near, and as you can see, we have our 26 who are below proficient. So this is how overall the state of Ohio and fifth graders look. Let's compare that now. What we really like to look at is our district performance level. Okay, so I love that our percent proficient is higher than the fifth grade average of the state of Ohio, as well as our average score, and I love to see that. So let's break down our scores here. So if we are looking at the reading for informational text, we have 58% of our fifth graders are above proficient. I love that. That is over half of our population. 31% are at or near, and 12% are below proficient. So I love to see that. I love to compare our test scores to the state of Ohio's overall score, and we are rocking that. We are outperforming that area overall. If we look at our reading for literary text, we have 54% who are above proficient. We have our 29% who are at or near, and then we have our 17% who are below. Again, overall, we are outperforming the general population of fifth grade students in Ohio. So I love to see that. Then we go and look at our writing. And as we always notice, writing is always the hardest we find for students in general. So we had our 45% are above proficient, 31% are performing at or near, and then you see the 24 is below proficient. So this area, we're kind of, if you look at the data as a whole in writing, we're about average. We're about the same as students in the fifth grade general population with our writing. But kudos to that. So that's breaking it down. That is what our students are assessed on with those ELA assessments, those three main categories. And so we comparing at our fifth grade percentage to the state of Ohio, and then our district performance level. Any questions? And like I said, I see some friends going over to the parking lot. When we have our break, I will definitely check out your parking lot. But is there any questions that you would like to share out now? Nice questions. Yes. Good questions. I really enjoy this. Yes. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. So now we're going to look specifically at our school district, but we're going to look at the performance of all three elementary schools, right? So this breaks it down. You can see your school here, and we have our other three elementary schools. So if we look at, like we said, the River City School District as a whole, we can see our percent proficient is 727. The average score, and we have 76% of students who are proficient for our district. We break it down to Stillwater Elementary School. We see that our scaled score is 720 and percent proficient is 69. Your school, we have percent proficient is 741, and our scaled score average percentage is 84. And then at our Wabash Elementary School, we see that 719, and our percent proficient is 73%. So if we look down at these scores, as I said, we can look even farther, and we have that informational text, we have our literacy text, and we have our writing. So over on this graph here, and again, I have the printout for you, we can see how many are below proficient, at or near proficient, and above proficient. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll set my timer for 3 minutes. I want you to go ahead and look at this data before we talk about it as a whole. Look at our school district as a whole, and then you can look at it broken down by the different elementary schools. So I will give you time to do that. And I will go check the parking lot as you do this. Awesome. I heard some great conversations again. I see some awesome parking lot questions that we're going to go over today too. None that were referring right to the data, so I will not answer those at this moment, but we will get to those today. Now, let's look at your school. Okay, so we said we have 84% who are proficient, which is amazing. If you look at all 3 of the elementary buildings, you guys are showing us the best performance level in regard to percentage and the average skill score. So yay, that is exciting to see. Now, let's break it down. You look at your reading for informational text, our reading for literary text, and our writing. And as we notice in all the trends, writing in all 3 school districts and in the state of Ohio, writing is the hardest part. That's the part where the students perform the least on. So if we look at yours, your reading for informational text, I was so excited to see that. We are very, very, very small in the below proficient level. You can see in the reading for literary text, there's only 11% who were below, and then the 12% for the writing. So I would like, you almost said kiss your brain. That's what I'm used to my students. But I mean, kudos to you. Give yourself a pat on the back. That shows me that what you are doing in the classroom is working. It is beneficial to our students. It is getting them to understand when they read the text and when they write too and respond to questions. So I am so proud of that. So great job to you guys. So we're going to break this down even more. So I know I just went through a bunch of percentages with you. Now we're going to break them down by text item analysis, okay? So like I said, I know you guys have seen this chart before because I've given you out this ahead of time, but I'm going to have you set my timer and give you some time to read through this chart before we go ahead and dive into it. All right, so let's come on back here. I love this chart because it breaks down the items, what the students are expected, and how many are getting it correct, the percent correct, and the percent incorrect. So it really breaks this down, and this is the key information that I like to see because it really allows us to hone in on our instruction to, again, give our shout outs, what we are doing phenomenal, what are we doing wonderful with, but then also areas that we can improve on. So let's always start off with our strengths. If we look at question 1, it says, quote accurately from a text to explain and draw inferences. So, wow, if you can see that, 71% of our students, they scored, that we had 71. We had 29 who scored incorrectly. That is amazing. That is showing me that your students can go into the text and they can make inferences. What they are reading, they can make inferences on what they're learning about. They can draw conclusions. They can make good predictions. So I love to see that. If we look at question 22 and 23, determining meanings of words and phrases used in text, including figurative language like metaphors and similes. So they can go into the text. Using that text, using the clues in the text, they can understand figurative language, they can understand similes, they can understand metaphors. If we look at questions 22 and 23, you can see that 78 and 75% of our students can do that. And then we had 22 and 25 who got that question or those areas incorrect. So that is awesome. They're understanding the vocabulary, they're understanding the meaning of words. That shows me that you are doing a wonderful job teaching our students the vocabulary. If we look at question 28, we're going to compare and contrast stories in the same genre, okay? Whether it's mysteries or adventurous stories. So our students are able to take 2 stories, compare them. How are they the same? And then contrast them. How are they different? So these questions, you can see that our students scored 54 scored 2 points, 33 scored 1 point, and 13 had it incorrect. So these 3, I know there's other areas that we had strengths in, but these 3 areas stuck out to me the most because it had to deal with vocabulary, and it had to deal with comparing and contrasting. So using what they're reading, recalling, and saying how they're different and how they are the same. And these to me are huge parts of, and you would agree, I'm sure, of being able to read and read for information, read to comprehend. So these ones I wanted to point out as ones that I noticed that stuck out to me, was like, yes, we are doing a wonderful job on that. So yay, good job. Now, is there any questions? Would anybody like to share maybe what you do in the classroom to get your students to understand meaning of words? What activities do you use? Or how do you get students to compare and contrast? Would anyone like to share out for me? And if you're not comfortable, this would be a chance to put it on a sticky note, and you can put it over. As you see, I have another poster up there of activities that you do in the classroom that maybe you'd like to share out. So you can also stick up your activities out there as well. And what I will do is I will send you out an email of a list of activities that are being done in the classroom that you feel are successful, that maybe your colleagues have not tried yet or they would like to try yet. So I will make sure I send that out to you this week as well. Now, we are going to look at, I know we looked at our strengths and I love to celebrate those, but we also have to look at areas of improvements, or sometimes we'll say our deficits. What can we improve on? Okay. When I look at improvements, if I give you 3 things to work on, I've learned that sometimes that's just too much at once. I feel like if we go over our strengths and I give you one area to focus on, you focus on that area until you feel that you are confident and you say, I have that. Then we can focus on other areas. So we're going to focus on one deficit today, and that is one that I thought that this would help our students drastically the most. And that is, if you look at question 25, it says, determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text, including how characters in a story or drama respond to challenges, or how the speaker in a poem reflects upon a topic. So basically, you are summarizing that text. And we all know summarizing is huge. No matter if you are a 5-year-old in kindergarten or you are in college taking graduate courses, right? Summarizing is key. We summarize things all the time. Not even stories we read. We summarize our day. I go home to my second grader and I say, tell me about your day today, right? He's not going to go through and tell me word for word everything he did from, 7:30 in the morning until we eat dinner at 6 at night. He's going to summarize the important parts of his day for me, and I would do the same for him. So summarizing, we use so much in our life that is the area that I thought that is what we need to hone on and focus on right now. So, what is summarizing? Now, I know you're probably like, I know what summarizing is. You kind of just explained it to me too. But there's more to summarizing than simply relaying information. There's more to summarizing when my son comes home to me and he relays what he did for the day, right? He gives me the important parts. It involves analyzing the information, separating important from unimportant aspects, and alluding to the main points of the information in a few short, cohesive sentences. Okay? Now, if you were reading the story, we all know Harry Potter, right? Most of us know that story. Those are long books, right? So if I were to have you summarize the main parts of that story, you're going to have to decide what are the most important aspects of that story. What do I need to relay to her for her to truly understand what that story was about? What are the unimportant aspects that I could leave out of the story that if I don't tell her, she's still going to get the gist of what our story is about, what the main point of that story is, right? So that is what you have to think about when summarizing. You have to you're not relaying me what you read, but you're deciphering what was most important and what was least important. What can I leave out when I summarize, and what do I have to share with her so she truly understands what that story was, right? So if you think about it, summarizing is a lot more than the definition you would think of. There are pieces and parts that you have to build together like an umbrella. It's like an umbrella of summarizing. There's different things you have to do to be able to successfully summarize, right? So why do we teach summarizing? I gave you some examples about how we use it in everyday life, but there is extensive research that shows summarization is one of the most effective methods of communication. I just gave an example of my 8-year-old son. He's summarizing what he did throughout the day when I'm not with him. That's how he communicates with me about his day, and we can kind of talk about the important aspects of his day, right? Same thing for my 3-year-old. If she goes to gymnastics class, right? I'm not in the class with her. I can see her on TV. I can't hear anything, but she can come back and she summarizes to me or shows me what she did in gymnastics class. So she's showing me, telling me the most important parts of that class, right? So it's how we communicate. So based on research, the National Reading Panel suggests summarizing as a reading strategy that improve comprehension in classrooms, right? Our biggest goal, why do we read? We read to comprehend. We read to learn. How are we going to comprehend? That's huge. It's telling us that summarizing is one of the reading strategies that's going to help us improve our comprehension. So why do we read to comprehend? How do we get better comprehensive readers? One area is to improve our summarizing. Because if you can summarize the most important parts of what you read, you are comprehending what you are reading. Mind-blowing, right? Think about that. If you can summarize what the important parts of what you read, you are comprehending what you are reading. That is huge. So the process of summarizing helps students identify the main ideas and then consolidate those important ideas to support them, right? So you have this main idea that your story or that you're reading about, but you have to have those supporting details that support that main idea, right? And that's what summarizing does. It helps students identify the ideas and then it consolidate those important ideas to support that idea, okay? It also, the ability to summarize is beneficial, and I've given plenty of examples of my own students, or my own children and students, but in every field of study. So I gave you some of my personal examples. Can you share with me any other areas of fields of study that you feel that summarizing is important and beneficial for? Great. Awesome. Yes. See how important summarizing is? It is a part of our everyday life. It's become so natural for us that we kind of forget how we got to become such experts at summarizing. So we're kind of breaking that down to realize, well, how did we learn to summarize? What are we doing when we summarize? It's second nature to us, so sometimes we need to break it down into the smaller levels to really understand, how did we learn to summarize? Why do we summarize? It also provides students with the opportunity to focus on the main points of the text so they can gain a deeper understanding of it. So when we're reading text, for example, I'm giving you the Harry Potter because I know a lot of people have read that book, but that is a huge book. You are reading lots of information. When we summarize and we really can understand it, and we can pick out those main points of the story, right? The most important parts, then it really gives us a deeper understanding. Now, like when I read Harry Potter for the first time compared to when I read it the third time, wow. I was able to pick up on more important parts of the details that maybe I missed out on that first time, right? So it's really helping us hone in and gain a deeper understanding of the text that we're reading. A quote that really stuck up onto me is, focus on the heart of the matter, right? When we write something, when we give a speech about something, there is a reason. There is like our heart, we know in our body, our heart is what makes us go, right? It's the main part of our body. Without our heart, we wouldn't have our body, wouldn't be able to function, right? So when we summarize, we are focusing on that heart, the main part of that text. What is the text about and what are those supporting details, right? So summary is the heart of what we're reading. So that is a quote that I will share with you out too when I send you the emails, because that quote stuck with me when I've read that in my research before. It's the heart of the matter. It's the heart of the writing, the heart of the story. So, research. We all know research is key, right? There are things that we do that we need to have our research backed on it. Why is research so important? Because people have spent long time studying, doing research and actually going out into the field and working with students to see what truly works, right? And there's backing to it. It's not just my opinion, it is what was proven to work. So let's look at the goal. So we're going to look at this research. I came across this research article. It's an experimental study, and it was about summarizing, right? So the goal of this research was to investigate the effects of an experimental program for training fourth grade primary school students to summarizing. And I thought this one was stuck out to me really well as too, because this fourth graders are coming to you are now your fifth graders, right? So this is kind of showing us what they can do in fourth grade to get to fifth grade and where you are. So we said this was an experimental study. There were 114 participants, and they were fourth grade students, and there were 5 teachers. So there was our controlled group, which was 76 students were in this controlled group. So what did they do? They examined the student's skill of summarizing by using a pre, post, and follow-up test. All students were divided into 4 groups according to their general reading competency. So they used their pre-test to determine, is the student struggling? Is the student at risk with summarizing? Are they average and good readers? So they took that pre-test and they divided them up into their groups, right? So they had their controlled groups, and then they had their non-controlled group. What were the results? All students, no matter if they were struggling, at risk, average or good readers, they made progress in summarizing utilizing methods that explicitly taught summarizing. What do we always say? What is the big push right now with the science of reading? It's explicitly taught instruction at our students' level. Okay? You know we're focusing on the science of reading, off topic from summarizing, our phonics instruction. We are having the big push in the state of Ohio for the science of reading. And what does that mean? That is explicit phonics instruction, right? When I taught kindergarten in Title I, my students' lessons were geared to their specific ability, and then my lessons were moved up based on where they were, right? So my lessons were explicit towards my students. That is what this research has shown, and I love it because it's correlating with what we're hearing in the phonics aspect of literacy, right? We need that explicit instruction towards our students. So all these students, no matter their level, if they are below or if they are above average in summarizing, they all made progress. Why? Because they utilized explicit teaching in regards to summary. You're probably like, well, Sarah, okay, so we know that explicit teaching works, but I knew that. But how do I do that? What are some research-based methods? So let's see. So before we get into that big break, I made sure I put this in there because if you noticed, I was going to keep on going, but I've had a lot of information thrown at you. So we're going to do a 10-minute brain break. But before we do that, are there any questions or thoughts thus far? I know we've talked about the research part of it. We've talked about our data that we've seen this year. We've talked about our strengths. And now we're talking about our deficits, areas of improvement, which we're focusing on summarizing today. So if you're not comfortable, I will also be up here preparing for our next half of our professional development meeting. Feel free to come up and ask me questions. Feel free, if you just need a break, go walk around. There's refreshments still over there. I'm going to check the parking lot. If you have any other questions to add to the parking lot, feel free to do that. So enjoy your time. All right. Looks like everyone had a nice break. I was glad to see friends laughing and talking. This isn't like, whoa, Sarah. We had refreshments going on. We went over the parking lot. We had some great new information added to the parking lot. We are keeping to our norms. I love that. We've all been respectful today, sharing ideas. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we went over the data. We saw some research that shows what or how should we teach summarizing. And we know that's explicit instruction. We've seen the research to show that it works. Now the big question is how? How do I implement this in my classroom, right? And I know I've been a teacher. I've been there. You have people say, hey, you do this in your classroom. This will work. But sometimes you're like, well, I have 22 students. How is that supposed to happen? So we're here today to work on that together. We're going to talk about ways we can implement. I'm going to give you a strategy today, just one strategy. right? Because as I mentioned earlier, I feel like if you get too many things on your plate to do at once, you're either going to not want to do any of it or you're not going to do them all excelling. I'd rather give you one area to work on, to try in your classroom. Come back to the table, see how it's working before we expand and learn some more. So let's talk about how we're going to implement what we're going to do. So when do we teach summarizing, right? Can anyone tell me, anybody want to share, when do you teach summarizing? Because I know you all teach summarizing, right? When? Awesome. I love that. Exactly what I have up here. You can teach summarizing anytime. As I mentioned with my own children, we summarize individually. You can summarize in small groups when you do your literacy rotations and centers. You can summarize in the whole group class setting when you're reading a story, right? Out loud. Summarize it together. If you have your students doing independent reading, you can walk around to your students and just have a conversation with them. Hey, tell me what you're reading. Summarize it for me, right? That's on the spot summarizing something that they're reading that you have no clue about, right? So there are so many different ways throughout the day that we can practice summarizing, and it doesn't have to be in a specific group setting, right? So here's some tips. Students can summarize during and after reading. If you are reading whole group to your class, you stop in the middle of your text when somebody's reading and summarize that little part. Pick out those important details, right? And then we all know when we're done reading, let's summarize the entire story of what we read. What are those main parts? Okay? You can do this with chapters, poems, fiction, and nonfiction series. The sky is the limit. As I mentioned, my son summarizes his day. Nothing that he read, he's just summarizing what he did for the day. Use different summarizing activities, and we're going to hone in on one specific summarizing activities, but there are many more, and I have a list that I will email to you as well, but I really want to just focus on one today because like I said, do this one well, then we can extend and add more, right? So choose a specific topic. This is always something fun that I like to do with my students is find their interests, right? We also know that when we teach students, if we can hone in on what they are interested in and use those in our classroom, that's going to make them more motivated to want to do what we're asking them to do, right? So if little Johnny is interested in dinosaurs, find a specific topic like dinosaurs. Maybe have him summarize, do a project on that for you, right? Little Susie may not be interested in dinosaurs, but she's interested in gymnastics, right? She could do a research summarizing on Simone Biles, okay? So we can hone in on our students' interests and teach them about summarizing. We also need to make sure, here comes with that explicit instruction that we learned about with the research. Give students directions to summarize. Give them that explicit instruction. You can't expect a student to read a chapter and then all of a sudden you say, summarize what you read, right? We have to get them there. We have to teach them the tools. We have to break down what exactly summarizing is. And that's where the explicit instruction comes in, right? Big thing, model. Model, model, model. How many things that we done throughout our lives from when we were little to now that we had modeling to help us, right? When my daughter goes to gymnastics and she's learning her cartwheel, the teacher is not only teaching her the appropriate steps to do that cartwheel, but she's modeling, right? If we want our students to be respectful to friends in the classroom, how do we do that? We model what that looks like with our classmates and with our colleagues, right? So modeling is another big point. So we talked about what is summarizing. In student-friendly terms, summarizing is telling the most important parts of our text, right? It's in our own words and it's in the shorter version, right? Teaching summarizing shows students how to discern the essential ideas in a text and how to ignore what's really irrelevant information, okay? And then making those integrate into central ideas in a meaningful way. If we can teach students how to summarize, it can improve their memory from what they read, and it's like a checker for comprehension, right? Because they're picking out those main ideas. So there are so many benefits to summarizing, not only just recalling what you read, but it's improving your memory and it's really improving your comprehension piece, right? So we want to focus on like the key information, when to use this strategy. And I've mentioned before, after reading, during appropriate groups, individual groups, small groups, whole class settings, right? And we talked about the importance of why we're teaching summary. So let's look at one way, a tool today of how you're going to try to implement this in your classroom to help teach summarizing, right? So first of all, we're going to begin by reading or having students listening to a text that you selected, right? You have plenty of text in your classroom. You have your Journeys or Wonder series that we use in the classroom that has the stories that they have to read weekly, and then we take their comprehension test on it, right? So you could simply start off with with a story out of there, right? We're going to ask the students to read the text. Then we're going to teach them how to summarize it. And how to do that? We have to explicitly model what we want done, right? You can't just say, we read this, now Johnny, summarize this for me, right? We have to model how to appropriately summarize. So talk about what are the main ideas, right? What are the main ideas when we read that text? And to get there, so figure out what the main idea is. Then we want to find supporting details that support that main idea, right? So if I was reading a story and the main idea was that there are many aquatic animals that live in the ocean, right? That's my main idea of the text. What are my supporting details that are going to support that, right? Maybe listing the different aquatic animals that live in the ocean, whether it's whales, sharks, penguins, okay? So we're going to different kinds of fish. Those are supporting details that support that main idea. And we're going to use keywords or phrases to identify the main points, right? When I just listed those different aquatic animals. So we're going basically from summarizing, we're going from retelling, which is asking the readers to recall events in the story, to determining what is the most important or essential parts in the story, right? And then we condense that information into a summary, right? That's the ultimate goal. So a good way to scaffold our young readers' growing ability to summarize is to model, like we said. So model and practicing summarizing routines, right? The routines or structures that makes the most sense will be different depending on our students. So there's that explicit instruction, their age and their experience. Some students are going to come in and they're going to be just automatic. They're going to be experts at summarizing. We're going to have students that are below that level, and our goal is to get them where they need to be. So that's, again, where that explicit instruction comes in, right? So for our less experienced students, what could we do? We could try transitioning from structured routines for teaching story sequence, such as beginning, middle, and end, and the first, next, then last, to structured summarizing routines, such as somebody, wanted, but, so, then, or the 5-finger W's, right? The questions, who, what, where, when, why, right? These scaffolds help give our students a visual representation of their thinking and a way to structure their responses while prompting them to think about more than just the sequence of events. And when I flip to the next slide, we're going to focus on the one I mentioned, which is the someone wanted but so then, and you're going to get to kind of visually see what I mean in regards to the visualizing, right? So we're using visualized representation for our students to see, to help, and then we're modeling for them, right? So let's go ahead, and I want you to go ahead. So you're like, okay, she's talked to me about this, and you notice this is kind of small for you to see, but I did print out this organizer for summarizing. We have the someone, wanted, but, so, and then, right? So this is the paper, and I made a copy, a nice copy for you to take so you can copy it and use it in your classroom, and I'll also email it to you because I know some of you like to have copies on your computer. But you're going to watch a demonstration of this strategy of somebody wanted, but, so, then, or simply SWBSTT, strategy to summarize the key elements. And if you think about this summary, the reason why I chose this one today is it's referring back to everything that I've mentioned up to this, right? Summarizing is what we're trying to improve on. How do we get there? Let's go back to that research piece. Let's go back to the science of reading. What do we know? Explicit reading instruction, right? Going to our students' levels. We know every year we are going to have students that come in below level. We're going to have students that are above grade level, right? We have to be able to work with all those students. I know it's a challenge. I know it is hard, but that is our job. That is our goal, right? So this is one way that you can use this summarizing tool, right, this research piece, and you can reach all levels of students no matter where they are. So I'm going to click on this YouTube video, and you're going to go ahead and watch this. And this is going to explain how you can use from an actual teacher in the classroom. Yes, I know I was a teacher, but I want to show you that this is doable in your classroom. And she's going to show you how to use this sequencing piece, right? This is a visual tool. For example, if I were to use this tool in my classroom, yes, the students would have their own paper that they could fill in, but I would also have a giant one blown up, a poster board one, right? That we could model explicitly and fill in together, right? I'm not going to expect my students to get this paper and say, all right, you just read what you read. I want you to use this and summarize what you read, right? That's not explicitly teaching them. That's not modeling what they need to do, right? So we're going to use this graphic organizer to summarize our story elements. So first, the students are going to fold the sheet of paper into fourths, or we can use this graphic organizer. You could switch it up. I would personally start with this graphic organizer because it's laid out and it has exactly the text for students to write. But as they get better at it, or for your more above average students, they can make their own sheet of paper by folding it into fourths, right? Then they would write the following headings like you see on this paper. They would write the somebody, the wanted, the but, and the so. Using a story that the students have read, right? We want them familiar with it, especially when we're first starting to teach this. Have students complete their individual charts by writing a statement, okay? Under each section, they'll write the somebody. Identify the character. Wanted, describe the character's goal. But, describe a conflict that hinders the character. So, describe the resolution of the conflict. Okay, and remind students that we want to focus on the most important information that is most significant. There are things in that text that they're reading that is not going to be important for them to summarize. So we want to explicitly model and remind them that, right? So there's your example. There's a simple tool, right? Does that seem manageable? Yeah. And how do we variate this lesson? You could also, something that's more kinesthetic, if I put 4 hula hoops on the floor in the classroom and I label each hoop with one of these headings, right? The somebody, the wanted, the but, and the so. After reading the story, I could have students stand inside the hoops and summarize each aspect of that and then hop from hoop to hoop, right? So there's so many different ways that you can incorporate this, right? I know there are some classrooms who, there are students who maybe can't handle the hula hoop for that day, right? You can get them out the paper. You see students who just need that active movement. Take them outside and do the hula hoop activity, right? So this method, you don't have to stick to this paper pencil. I would recommend maybe just starting with this so the students have a visual of what you're expecting, but then you can just extend it even more, right? You could have little buckets to explain each section. They shoot the ball into the bucket, explaining 4 buckets, right? So there's different ways that we can incorporate this into our classroom, which is what I love. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video. And again, I will send you this link so you have it as well to refer to. Do we have any questions? What did you think of that video, right? My biggest thing for today is I want you to take away, you guys are doing a phenomenal job, right? Our data looks great. When we compare ourselves, 5th graders, to the state of Ohio, we are doing above what the national norms are for 5th grade in the state of Ohio, right? But we know that our goal is to always make improvements, right? I always want to make sure that my professional development meetings improve from the next one, right? So when I go to teach this to the other 2 elementary schools, I hope to take away some improvements that I've learned from you, right? So here are some additional resources. And again, I'm going to send all this in an email, a nice email that's all linked together so you have it all in one source. But these are some additional resources that I have found or I have utilized in my own classroom previously that have helped and can help you with summarizing strategies for your students. They help you to differentiate these strategies, and they are relatable. They are real life strategies that you can do in your classroom. So I will send that out to you. Now that my presentation is over, I'm going to talk how I'm going to differentiate this among schools. So all my 3 schools, I'm going to always point out their strengths. Like I showed in this presentation, Strengths, I feel like you should always lead with strengths. That's going to give you have a good rapport with them. You're noticing the good job that they're doing in the classroom, right? We're going to celebrate those, we're going to discuss them. But then we're going to talk about how we can improve our scores even farther, right? And I want them to know that I'm there for them. I want to be a good resource for them. I want to be an advocate for them. I want to give them things that they need to feel successful and to be successful, right? So each school, like I did in this professional development, they're going to analyze their own individual data. All right. I'm going to let them compare to the state of Ohio. I'm going to let them then compare their school to the other two schools and then analyze their school even farther. And in that analyzing, we're going to talk about our strengths and our weaknesses, right? Go over the questions. Then I'm going to teach the strategies to each school based on the data. So for example, just because I am teaching the comprehension strategy for this group of summarizing does not mean that this is the exact strategy that I'm going to teach my next school, right? Because even though my next school struggled with comprehension, their data could maybe, before they even help students learn to summarize, there could be a key part in literacy of the 5 components that they're missing before that. So I'm going to go through those 5 components and I'm going to see, well, which out of this building, what do they need to focus on before they even hit summarizing? And if it's summarizing, then that's what I would focus on. Here are my references that I used for my professional development meeting. And when I would end my professional development meeting with my teachers, I would make sure that they walked away feeling confident and that they feel comfortable. So make sure that they have my email, make sure they have my phone number. I'm going to send them my PowerPoint. I'm going to send them my PowerPoint. I'm going to send them the links that they have, the paper, a fresh copy paper that they can have on their computer, as well as other ways that they can use this data. And then I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm not just leading this professional development meeting and they're not going to hear from me again for 6 months. We're going to come back together again and we're going to collaborate. How is this method that you're utilizing in the classroom, how is that working? Because this test, as we know, is done 3 times a year. So hopefully from now at the beginning of the year until they finally take that end of the year test, we see some growth in this building for our summarizing, and that'll be key to reevaluate the data. Is what we're doing working, right? And if I feel and the teachers feel that they're confident using this method, then we'll talk about other research methods to teach summarizing, right? So those will be my goals for future professional development meetings with my teachers. Thank you for listening.